Hi, my name is Russ Milheim from the Direct. Thank you for talking to me today about the show.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
I
nice to
have
meet
seen all 10 episodes. Great work. I loved it
Thank
through and
you.
through. Now, the show is based on a book by James Clavell, and also there was a miniseries back in 1980. Can you talk about the process of taking, the page to the screen, but also changes that maybe you had to make to both the book and the miniseries?
Yeah, well, I'll say for starters, I mean, we came to the book. We had never come to seen the miniseries or hadn't actually, in our case, generationally speaking, read the book before we started this. I would say it was a book that was on everyone's parents' nightstand, for us generationally. And so I think because of that, I found a pretty helpful point of view because we could see it as a silhouette and engage with it that way, and in my case, just speaking only for myself, that silhouette was like maybe a little, I was conflicted about it. It was, the image of a guy who looks a lot like this.
a little more muscle though.
Maybe a little more muscle,
Sorry.
he's standing in in clothing that don't belong to his culture, and there's a representational side to that which I can't really speak to, but what I can speak to is felt like a story maybe we'd seen before. And I think that's part of the legacy of the book, is that it was so powerful and had such an outsized influence that people have been ripping off from it for a very long time, and so we had to find, I guess, as writers, we say we're like always in search of new cliches, like that's what we're after. And so we wanted to stand on its shoulders, and reach for something even newer or even more exciting. And interestingly, what we found was when you read the book, it's like it's all right there.
Mhm.
It's actually this just amazingly modern, subtle kind of stab at exactly these kinds of stories that have been ripped off of it, over the years, of what it means to encounter another culture, what it means to encounter yourself in that culture, your own agency, and find maybe you have a little less agency than you thought you did going into it.
And
And
how do you feel about that?
yeah,
Are you going to be angry about it? Are you going to find a strategic way to take your lack of agency and turn it into a form of agency?
yeah, and to surrender to that
Mhm.
which you can't control and that which you don't necessarily belong to. And we thought that was a really beautiful modern story, all right there in the book. So we sort of started there, and with that framework, that's how we move through the story.
Now, the show can get really gory, and not to any negative point, mind you, but just it's all done so authentically and feels truly visceral and grim. Can you explain how you tackled those moments and made them into what they are?
I'll say as a viewer myself, I really struggle with violence and gore. I feel like I have to have a person with me to watch it. I don't know why that mitigates or how it mitigates it, but it does. So I learned a lot from Justin on how to kind of approach this, because you don't want to avoid the truth of it, right? And the fact of it. The fact of it is that unfortunately it does exist. But what I learned through this production, through Justin's approach, is that it is how closely to the fact of it are you going to express it? Like, does it feel shocking? Yes. Does it feel like you want it to end? Do you want to dread it? Yes, because that's what violence
Yeah.
is it's shocking and it's dreadful.
I think like I've always had, and I did this on my last show too, like this philosophy when it comes to action or violence, that it should be as subjective as possible. Because I think when you get into the mindset of the person who's right there, no one enjoys violence. No one is excited for it. You kind of, it happens and you want it to be over as quickly as possible. And when you do that, it has this dual effect of, one, feels like we're not celebrating it, but also it does create this visceral, surprising, the point of violence, which is to sort of make itself clear as this is a point where all conversation has failed.
Mhm.
And I think when you have that, it creates a recipe for something surprising.
Mhm.
Now, I have to ask, do you think fans can hope for a season two or any sort of kind of spin-off stories if this show
Uh,
is successful?
That's interesting. Like I think we tell the complete story of the book. And we get to the end. I hope those who read the book will see it's exactly where the book ends, and we're really excited about that because it's a very surprising ending that Clavel does for the book, and it's kind of beautifully ambiguous in certain senses. But that's the stories we tell it. I will also say, like, it took us 5 years. This show is older than both of our children. It's a lot. It's like, yeah.
But I will quote our one of our lead actors, Cosmo Jarvis, who said the other night that he hopes that this production will kind of be a catalyst for audiences to encounter Japanese history in a new way, because there's a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, and I think of like the movies I grew up on, the Jidaigeki, the films that kind of came up with it. I'd love for this in the United States to inspire like a new curiosity.
Yeah.
Uh,
A new hunger for it.
yeah, that
Yeah.
would push more movies, TV, and video games in that space would be great.
Yeah, yeah. The reason for the question is just I know that after people watch these 10 episodes, they're gonna want more. They're gonna want more of that world, culture, that age, everything about it. But thank you guys again for talking with me, and
Thank you,
congratulations.
Russ.
It was a great time.